is getting colder, trying to get sober. Lord help me get
Welcome to the
stronger.
12 at 12 podcast, and we are here with Trish today, our special guest. This is a show where we talk about real life and real recovery. That's what it's about, and that's what this show is about. Growth, development, all the way around. And if you have not yet subscribed to the channel, please tap the subscribe button, hit the bell button to be notified of new shows and new podcasts. Remember, Monday through Friday, we're here at 12 for you. Now, Trish, tell us a little bit about your relationships. From my understanding, you've been in a relationship how long?
For 9 years.
9 years. And both of you went through recovery?
We went through recovery, addiction, just about everything together.
Okay, so the people who might not know who you are, who might not know who Trish is, you can also check out her on the First Step Recovery channel. She has a little bit of a testimony of what she's been through during recovery. So you could check that out. Make sure you go and check out that First Step Recovery. And you know that we are sponsored by First Step Recovery. If you need help with your addiction, if you need help with recovery, please contact them today. They will be happy to help you. So tell us a little bit first off how you started with your relationship, which was a bad relationship with addiction.
You're okay. I first started off with my relationship with addiction when I was 14 years old. I drank and I smoked weed, which all seemed like a party phase. And I did that repeatedly until I was 20. Then when I was 20, I was introduced to cocaine. Cocaine led to more drinking, more drug abuse. And then when I had moved to Kentucky, I was then introduced to meth, which eventually became my be-all, end-all drug.
So your meth was more of the drug of choice?
It was the one where my life started to spiral out of my control.
Spiral out of your control. Do you feel like, just personally, do you feel like marijuana is a gateway drug? Do you?
I feel like for me as an addict, it is, because if I make an allowance to smoke weed today, then I will make an allowance to start drinking, then I'll make an allowance to do other drugs. Anytime you give me an inch as an addict, and I will take a mile any day of the week.
Hey, that's pretty much how it goes. You know, just like with alcoholics, you can't, if you're an alcoholic, you can't just have one drink. You can't do what other people do. Okay, they have a drink here and drink there. You have a drink, you're going down the wrong path.
Exactly. Anything that is mind altering will allow you to start being able to manipulate and convince yourself that you can do other things. So for me, it starts off with weed, like I said, weed to drinking straight back to meth and fentanyl.
What started you with weed though? Were you introduced to it by a friend or was it a family member?
Actually, my sister introduced it to me. One of my sisters did.
Yeah.
I have a lot of sisters, and one of them introduced it to me. And it was just something I did on the weekend. Then me and my best friend started doing it almost daily, to where I was doing it daily. Mm-hmm. That's how I know, like they say you can't get addicted to weed, but I had an addiction to weed because soon I was paying for weed before I was paying for my bills.
No, definitely, definitely. Weed is addicting. Like people say it's not. It could definitely be an addicting thing because I know how it was when I smoked, man. You know, some people even I know to this day, if I talk to them, they be like, "Yo, I can't, man. I need to smoke right now.
Absolutely.
Jeez, I'm so stressed out. I need to smoke. It's not I need to stress out and calm down. It's I need to smoke or I haven't smoked all day." Listen, folks, if you're doing that and you're to the point where you can't even function without taking some type of substance, you're addicted.
Absolutely.
You're addicted. It's just as simple as that. I can't go a day without this, or it throws a day off when you don't have it, or you know what, man, you're just mad all day until you smoke, and then it's like, you know, you'd rather be high, mind altered, instead of being in reality dead. That's definitely an addiction problem right there.
Absolutely. It was then that I should have realized that I didn't have a functioning mentality like a lot of my family members do. I do have functioning addicts in my family, but when it started, like I said, becoming, I couldn't begin my day or end my day without it. I couldn't, whether it was weed, alcohol, or meth or fentanyl or anything like that. The minute that my day couldn't start and my day couldn't end without it is the minute that I should have realized I had a problem.
So a lot of people, they end up in too deep before they even realize what happened. It starts off as fun. It starts off as partying. It starts off, hey, yo, we're gonna have a great time, hang out, you're feeling good, and then it's just like you said, you were doing what? You were trying to get high before you was even trying to pay your bills.
Yeah.
And this was what, marijuana?
That was the weed downfall. Absolutely correct. So your AA book will teach you, in Bill's story, that liquor ceased to be a luxury and became a necessity, and that's everything that I did. Everything ceased to be a luxury and became a necessity. I've dabbled in way more than it's not that I'm not willing to admit, I have dabbled in more than I ever thought I would. Because it all starts off as a party.
So what is the big book? Just a little bit about it, because people hear about the big book or the AA book. Exactly what is that when it comes to recovery? What is that book? For people who might not know.
The AA book, there's different stories, and with each different story and each different chapter, I was able to see myself in it and see ways that I needed to change. The AA book talks about the phenomena of craving. It talks about people's personal stories, and it talks about not just the 12 steps, but the different types of addicts that exist out there. For me, an addict was an addict. I didn't know that there were different types of addicts, or I didn't know that I was able to compare my addiction to certain stories. So you have 3 stories. You have the businessman, the salesman, the car salesman, and then you have the jaywalker. I am 100% the jaywalker, the person who keeps jumping out into traffic knowing the consequences, and it doesn't matter how many times I get hurt, I'm still going to do it because I crave that rush.
Oh man, so it's more like the adrenaline that you get behind it.
Absolutely. So the adrenaline that comes from addiction, from living that lifestyle, that's an addiction all on its own. It's not just the drugs, it's chasing it. Doing stuff that you know you shouldn't have done, but you don't get caught for, that's an adrenaline rush.
Yeah. A lot of people are addicted to adrenaline rushes, doing crime and doing things they're not supposed to. It seems that way also, because some people, that's why you get some people who don't have to commit crime and they're all right financially and they might have a good life. People looking on the outside, but then they still can't help but to do something wrong. They still can't help but to break the law here, break the law there, just to do it because it just feels like they're just getting that rush. They like that feel.
Absolutely. The big book states that there's a bit of bad in the best of us and a bit of good in the worst of us. So I think everybody craves that adrenaline rush, regardless if you're in addiction or not. It's just with addiction, it's a different type of crazy. It's it's not just a fast-paced crazy, it's an instant gratification crazy.
See, that's the problem, instant gratification.
Yep.
That's the problem. Being impatient, you're trying to get it real fast, moving fast. So tell me, how did you when you're being 9 years together with you and your husband, how did y'all first meet?
Oh, so that one's a funny story. So my husband is originally from Kentucky and I'm originally from Arizona. Well, he saw himself going to Arizona one day and ended up moving onto my couch and didn't realize it. And then convinced me for 6 months to go out with him because I am 2 years older than him. And at the time, I was 21.
So he moved into your couch. Was he your friend at the time? Or how did that
happen?
Was,
okay, so my cousin was dating his cousin, and they ended up coming to Arizona together, and they brought him with him. And I told my cousin she could stay with me, and they ended up moving the student, and I had no idea about it.
Oh, so you got set up. You didn't even know what was going on. Was he part of the plan, or did your cousin, how did that work?
It was not part of the plan. Like I said, I wasn't even interested. I'm 2 years older than him. So at the time I was 21, I was living my best life at a bar, and you can't even go into a bar.
He swindled his way on in there right there, right? You like, oh man, you know what? I was doing good before I came into you.
Right. No, he has his own past with addiction, and then I did before I met him, and then we had some good, we got together and we were both clean at the time.
Oh, okay.
But this was dry time. This is why we're so adamant about talking about recovery time and dry time. Mm-hmm. Dry time is the first time I tried to get sober, and I didn't ask for help. I didn't get any help. I still experimented thinking that I had everything under control. by experimentation, I mean, like, I would drop acid every once in a while. It wasn't something that I did daily. And when we came to Kentucky, his addiction came full blown, and my addiction came full blown, head on.
So were y'all addicted to the same thing? Was it two different things y'all like to do?
We were addicted to the same thing. We just preferred it different ways.
Okay. So going down the road, when did you get to the point that you started being serious about it, and how did addiction actually affect the relationship while you were doing it and getting serious?
So the first round, before I had my daughter, it didn't really affect us in that way because we were always side by side. But the second round, when we ended up relapsing after having my daughter, we were constantly separated. We both became abusive in our own ways. So my husband, he became mentally abusive, and I became physically abusive to each other.
So all the way around, it just became a toxic relationship.
It was a toxic relationship and a toxic environment for my daughter at that time.
Yeah.
Right now, though, the only way we have made things work, and it's something that I suggest everybody who is in a relationship do, is to separate. We separated for a year. And we healed separately. Because during that healing process, you're going to find a whole new you. And at the end of that process, you are either going to be compatible or you're not going to be compatible because you're two different human beings standing there. I would love to sit here and say that my relationship is the strongest it's ever been, but that's not the reality of it. The reality is that we put effort into it every day because we are two new human beings. It's almost like we're dating again, despite being together for 9 years. But we're past the honeymoon phase of dating, but we're still in the beginning stages.
Okay, so it was different. It was different when you were using at the time, and now that both of you are sober, now it makes it a little bit different. I think that's a pretty good thing that you said as far as taking a break and healing. Being that people get into relationships already, a lot of times they're already hurt. They're not even healed yet. And they get into relationships. And then once they get in relationships, they're bringing their baggage, they're bringing their drama, or they're bringing their addiction into it. And then it's like you're clashing.
Like when you first come into recovery, and I see people getting into relationships when they're first in recovery, I don't think it is, honestly, I don't think it's healthy because you don't know who you are. So how do you know if the new you at the end of the day is going to be compatible with your old self taste, the taste you had once upon a time?
Yeah.
And then you make all these plans together, and then you guys move out together, and then a year down the road, you find out you're not compatible. I think it's really important, even if you are in a long-term relationship like I was, you have to separate. That's the stuff that nobody wants to talk about. It's the nitty and gritty of it. They say a couple who heals together stays together. Absolutely not. That's not always a guarantee. But neither is separating. But you have to take that time. You were selfish in addiction, and right now is the time to be selfish in your healing and finding out who you really are. Because you are a whole new human being when you come out of addiction.
Yeah, and separating doesn't mean that you go out and just have sex with every single person you
Absolutely
jump around.
not.
It means to sit back, people,
Yeah.
and get yourself right, and don't worry about your lust. I feel like a lot of people, they move off of lust instead of moving off of, they start, like a lot of men, they like to think with the little head instead of thinking of the big head, and then they start thinking, hey, you know what, man, let's just go ahead and just, I got this urge right now, I don't want to control it, I want to do this with this person, and now I feel like there's not enough discipline out there.
I don't think so either, but I think that's because that's a lot of people willing to give into the flesh all the time.
Yeah.
They are feeding the flesh and not the spirit, which is what you need to do when you're in recovery, because your spirit is broken. It is damaged, and not just by what was done to you, but by what you did to your own self. So the first relationship I think people need to worry about healing is the relationship you have with yourself, because you manipulate to yourself more than others. You lied to yourself before you lied to anybody else. You stole from yourself before you stole from anybody else, because you didn't just steal years of their life, you stole years of your own life. You stole minutes, days, seconds of your life that you can never get back again.
So you have to start loving yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you have to know how to love yourself before you're actually able to properly love somebody else.
Yeah.
You know, if you're treating yourself bad and you hate yourself, that's the same thing you're going to project to somebody else. And then you might not even want to at the time. You might think you're just loving them. You might even just fly them with gifts, but eventually that side that's inside of you is going to come out. And like you said, it's either going to come out through verbal abuse or physical abuse. Some type of way, some abuse is going to be involved. And I see that a lot with relationships with people in recovery and things like that. Also, definitely, I think the smartest thing would be to do is to not be in a relationship where you're going through recovery. Absolutely. You know, I mean, if you're married, obviously you're going through it. Like she said, that's the time that y'all need to take a break. Both of y'all get clean if you're both involved, and start fresh again. If it's a year or however long it takes, and just build after that and learn how to love again, because it's gonna be like you're two brand new people, because you got one mindset when you're using drugs. You're thinking one completely different way than you are when you're sober.
Yeah, when you're sober, you're actually able to care about somebody other than yourself. In addiction, it's about you and yourself, which is why most relationships don't last in addiction. It's because it's its selfish wants and it's its selfish needs. Now, not every relationship needs a year. However, my personal relationship, my husband didn't need a year. I did. But he was willing to be patient and waited for me for that year.
Ooh, that's a key word right there. Patience. Patience is virtue. Patience is power. People like to try to move things forward so fast. I want this now. I need this now. But
it's instant gratification.
Yeah, it's the gratification, like you were saying. But at the same time, it's not good. It's good to just make your steps, good steps, proper steps. Make the right decisions. Make the right actions. Because every action is going to cause a reaction, and you need to just weigh it all out. Put it all on the table. If you're in a relationship and you're going through recovery right now, or you're thinking about getting a relationship, put it all on the table. Let your people know, whoever you're talking to out right now, and just sit back and be like, listen, this is what's going on. Let us both get right, and then let's see what's going on. Doesn't mean you can't be friends. I mean, I believe in being friends first off to get to really know who a person is. Like you said, discipline in the flesh. You know, discipline in the flesh, building the spiritual. You know, because if you're spiritually dead, then you're just going to give off death to other people.
Absolutely, and you're also going to attract death at the same time. So while you're healing, do you really think it is absolutely necessary to have somebody toxic around you during that time?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. And who knows, you may be the toxic person and you just don't realize it yet because you haven't began your recovery journey. It took a while for me to realize that I wasn't a victim in my story, I was a villain.
Yeah.
Yep.
You got to sit back and realize, listen, everybody else is not the problem. You have to take that. One word that everybody hates so much, accountability.
Yeah, I know.
Accountability. I was watching a reel, somebody was like, accountability. Had judges sitting up there and it's like, hey, accountability. And everybody was like, no, accountability. Started melting like the Wicked Witch of the West, you know? So it's like, that's a word that everybody hates to talk about, accountability, because they like to point the finger. Everybody else is the problem besides you.
Exactly.
You know, I had to realize I was the problem. I'm the reason a lot of things happen in my life. I'm the reason relationship. Can't blame my parents, can't blame this, can't blame that, because when you're old enough, you make these decisions on your own.
Exactly. So I'm not saying I had the best past in the world growing up, but I know I don't have the worst growing up, but I can sit there and blame my childhood all I want, but the truth is behind everything, I chose the path that I made. Nobody forced me to. It was my choice. And that's the main key point is it's a choice. Addiction is a disease that began with a choice. And it's a choice that most of us make willingly.
So after 9 years being together, How long have both of you been clean up to this point?
So I have actually more clean time than he does right now. He ended up having a small relapse, but that's okay because the truth is that relapse is a part of recovery, and that's something nobody wants to talk about. He had a relapse, so he's got about 7 months now, and I have 18 months at the end of this month.
Oh, nice. Congratulations. Congratulations.
Thank you. That's another key part to a relationship. He has 7 months clean now, but I didn't turn my back when he fell off the horse. Instead, I encouraged him to go to recovery. He went to a recovery center, and he got what he needed. And not just that, when it was time to leave, he relocated, which is what I needed too. Because sometimes going back home is more toxic for you than not.
So honesty is key. Was he honest with you when he relapsed, or did you have to find out? How did you find out that he relapsed?
So he was afraid to tell me at first. So that was when I set up my boundaries with him, and I told him what I would and would not accept from him from this point on. So I had to find out through my CPS caseworker, while in the middle of fighting for my daughter, that he had relapsed. Then he calls me and tells me that he relapsed after he knew that I knew. So the best part about finding out who you are and mistakes and stuff is you have to realize mistakes will happen. But if you make it clear from the beginning your boundaries on what you will and will not accept, and if they're willing to work on it with you, then there's no reason why the relationship can't work. I know his boundaries and he knows mine because we're not honest today. I don't believe in honesty because that still leaves room for questioning. I believe in transparency. That way there's no room for questions.
Okay.
I don't have to question anything anymore. He's very transparent with me, and I appreciate that.
So trust is a major factor in that.
Absolutely, and it was something we've had to rebuild this last year. And he doesn't run and hide from me anymore. He lets me know when things are going on, when he's not feeling okay in the head, or sometimes he'll get an inkling thought like, oh, well, trying to glorify the past days and everything like that, and I'll stop him from doing that, and I'll tell him no. I was like, it's not as good as you think it was, because remember where it led.
Yeah. I think that's one thing people can't do during recovery is sit back and glorify those days. Because I know a lot of times it might be like, you know what, man, I remember when I was just doing so good back then, you're using. But the using is what affected you in a negative way that led you down the path that you was basically destroying yourself.
Exactly.
But even though while you're using, you might have things that seem like good times, things that seem like bad times. You know what I'm saying? Oh yeah, remember we used to hang out and do this, do that. Yo, you remember that? Yeah. But you know, you got to think about it again. Yeah, I was lit at this time. I was out of my mind at this time. You know, let's experience these good times, building good times, while you're going through soberness.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I don't believe in glorifying the bad days, but I'm not going to sit here and lie and say that I don't have any good memories from addiction, because I do. I spent years in it.
Yeah.
However, nowadays, it's not that I play the tape out. I play the tape backwards, going from the destruction all the way up to what's leading me to having these thoughts in the first place. Most people play it all out. I have to start with the destruction, otherwise I'll get stuck in the happy memory lane.
So if you get stuck in the happy memory lane, you think it might plant some seeds of going back and reindulging?
Absolutely. The devil's looking for every way to attack, especially those who come out of recovery, and what better way than to sit there in memory lane?
How many times have you relapsed while y'all been in a relationship? These 9 years, have you ever relapsed?
Absolutely, I did.
What could you say that caused some of the triggers for you to relapse while you was actually in a relationship, and how did your husband take that?
So honestly, the relapse happened the only time I've been clean since we first got together was when a pregnancy test came up positive and it was no longer my body. That is the only reason I got clean. Because it was no longer about me. The relapse was easy because I didn't want to quit in the first place.
So you getting clean wasn't about you in the first place.
And that's where people mess up. You have to do this for yourself. If you do it for anybody other than yourself, it won't stick. It never will. That's why when you see people come in here on court orders and everything like that, we always tell them that the door swings both ways, because you can come here, but nobody can force your recovery on you.
Yeah.
You have to want it.
You gotta want it. Gotta want it, because what if this person lets you down? What if this person leaves? What if this person, God forbid, dies?
Yeah.
And then you're just sitting there, man. Your whole sobriety, your whole way of life thinking, and everything else with it, just going on in life, period, was based around, you built it based around this other person. And then if this other person, like I said, is taken from you for whatever reason, or just happens to leave you, because it happens, it's life, you know what happens. You're just gonna let yourself self-destruct, you know, if you're not doing it for yourself.
Exactly. That's why we say expectations are resentments on a reserve for a reason. If you do this for anybody other than yourself, you're going to have unrealistic expectations and end up having a downfall.
So putting expectations on other people is basically putting a higher expectation than you can actually handle.
Exactly. So what happens when they don't live up to expectations? You get disappointed, you get discouraged, and it makes you lose faith.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
But that's also where redirecting your faith where it needs to go comes into play.
So right now, how do you say that your relationship is right now, since both of you have been sober? Him sober for 7 months, I think, and you sober for 18 months. How is your relationship now compared to the rest of the time that y'all been together for this time?
Honestly, I personally think it's good. He drives me crazy, but I wouldn't have it any other way. Like I said, it's a lot of it's like dating brand new again, except for you're past the honeymoon phase. And I would love to sit here and say that I love him more than I ever loved him before, but the truth is I'm in love with a different man than when we first got together, and I'm happy with the man he's becoming today.
Nice. It's a pleasure you being here, Trish. It definitely is. And do you have any type of advice you would like to give the people out there before you go?
I only have one real true advice. Two is, one, take the time to be selfish and take care of yourself and find out who you really are. You're worth your recovery, so you're worth finding out who you really are. Two, I don't recommend you getting into a relationship, especially if you're in early recovery. You're still figuring out who you are. So it's best to continue to find out who you are, to find out what you're willing to put up with, as I like to say. And if you are in a relationship, don't use the break as an excuse to cheat. Use the break as a chance to find yourself again and come back to each other again. There's no reason why a relationship can't work if you don't want it to. It's not forgive and forget. It's forgive and become a healthier version of yourself today.
That's great. I agree with all those steps right there, and I hope you do. Please drop a comment down below to let us know how you feel, your thoughts on relationships and addiction. And please, if you have not yet subscribed to the channel, tap that subscribe button and tap that bell button if you're on YouTube to stay notified of the new videos that's coming out. Remember, this is the 12 at 12 podcast, where real people give real stories, real life, and recovery. Have a great day.
Bye.